Kitchens, sheds, laundries, spare rooms, distilleries all over the world are about to get turned into laboratories because the Great Base Malt Co-Lab is open for business. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse and this is Still It, the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. And what is more legitimate than science? The Great Base Malt Co-Lab is officially open for business, guys. It's time to get stuck in. So this video is here to tell you exactly how you can get involved, what you can do, where we're at right now, and what it means for you to be involved as an early adopter of this program. If you haven't seen the previous videos on the Malt Co-Lab, it might be worth you going back and watching those to sort of get a handle on what the hell's going on. This probably doesn't make any sense to you. But the very basic idea is that we're going to get people all over the world to submit sensory data on specific base malt, single malt whiskies. Now I say single malt as in actually one base malt, not single malt like what the Scots call single malt, cool? So we're using one base malt and then once it's finished further on down the track, we're going to submit sensory data all into a big group of data so we can build up a flavour library of what base malts contribute what flavours to a whiskey. Let's get a couple of questions out of the way for this, whole project first to start off, and then I'll show you where the document is that you need to download and read through before you get started. So number one, this whole thing, this is a free open source project. It's not a system where I'm going to ask you to sign up to get the results at the end or anything like that. The idea is that I want the community to come together for the community's sake. And I do have to do some things to, protect the integrity of the data, but I will do everything I can to make the raw data as well as the findings of that data available for anyone that wants to use it. Number two, people have been getting in touch saying, this is going to be my first all grain, whiskey. I'm a little bit scared that I'm going to screw the results up for everyone. I don't really know if I should be involved. Bollocks! Bollocks! We need you. We want you. Join in, please, guys. If you are less experienced, honestly, the only major difference here is that you don't bring along baggage due to experience and time in the hobby already. You don't have biases built up that are going to hold you back, especially going into the perception side of things later on. That's a good thing, so don't stress about it, guys. Yes, people might mess up and, hit a different original gravity for their mash, for example. It doesn't matter. As long as you record accurately what you actually did, not what you were trying to do, all of those things can be accounted for in the data. And if we get enough people, which I really hope we do, submitting enough data, then it also just works itself out in the wash. Cool? So guys, please don't be shy about joining this thing. I also want to talk about anonymity really quickly. So to protect the data itself from bias with me and whoever else ends up interpreting the data, and in terms of protecting the people that submit data to this thing, the whole thing's going to be anonymous. So I'm not going to be asking for your name, your address, any of that sort of stuff. With the exception being, if you are affiliated with a professional distillery and that distillery gives you the blessing to submit results under that name, I'll give you the option of putting your name in to basically say that you're a contributor to this program. There is a small chance that logistically we're not going to be able to do everything we need to do later on down the track without taking an email address. So I'm trying to make it so I don't have to take any personal data. But if it turns out that I do have to take any personal data, it'll only be an email address so we can send you a product code for the thing that you make. That'll make sense further on down the track, don't worry about it. People also keep asking me how long they have to do this. So how long, before you have to submit the results. I'm trying to set this whole thing up so it just, once it starts, it doesn't stop, baby. It just keeps on rolling. If you want to submit, 15 different tests over the next 15 years and becoming a better and better library of flavors that can come from base malts. So there's no rush, guys. This is a marathon, not a sprint. In saying that, let's set ourselves a kind of crazy goal. Let's see if we can get 250 people signed up and submitted in the next 6 months. In fact, I'm going to put it on my calendar right now and remind myself to check in 6 months' time. With that stuff out of the way, let's get stuck right into the process that we're going to be following and the document that you guys need to download now to be able to start doing this. Cool? So the first thing you need to do, guys, is go to chasethecraft.com/basemaltcolab, this URL right here. And on that page, you're going to find a document. There's a little button to click that, and it's going to download a PDF for you, which is going to give you all of this information. I'm going to go through it, walk through it with you now step by step. So hopefully it makes a little bit more sense to you. If you have any other questions, if anything seems unclear, if you don't know what to do or how to do it, put your questions in the comments on the YouTube video. Cool, guys? Put them all here in one place. So the first page is pretty much here to sort of outline what the project is, what we're doing, and talk about some of the things that I already talked about in the beginning of this video. If you skip on over to page 2, you'll see the base malts that you guys requested and then voted on. So we ended up with 12 of them, not 10. Guys, please, 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 if you can get hold of these base malts, use these base malts. And when I say these base malts, I mean, if we're saying Thomas Fawcett Maris Otter, get Thomas Fawcett's Maris Otter. Don't go and get Maris Otter made by someone else. Now, I don't want to exclude anyone. I don't want anyone, for some strange reason, they can't get their hands on a single malt on this list. I don't want you to miss out. So there is a place for other there. But guys, please, this data works so much better if we concentrate on a few things. This document's kind of set up so that as you do go through it, you can print it out and scribble all over it. Tick the box that you're using Simpsons, Golden Promise, for example. As we go through each part of the process, there'll be somewhere to write down all the things you need to write down. Cool? Everyone has different setups, and I mean setups all the way through. They've got different mash tuns, they've got different sizes, some are on gas, some are on electric. Some people only have a pot still, some people only have a plate still. The mash is something that I can't give you an exact recipe. Well, I could, but 90% of the people out there wouldn't be able to follow it, right? So instead what we're doing is we're trying to standardize the outcome of the mash at this step in the process. So we want to mash at 65 degrees Celsius or 149 degrees Fahrenheit. We're mashing for an hour and a half. I know that's longer than normal. We're gonna separate the grain from the wort. That's important for this one, guys. Please, if you can, do it. If you absolutely can't, that's cool. You're just gonna have to roll with what you get. And after we separate, we're going to boil it for 15 minutes. The reason being is that we wanna kill, any wild bacteria, yeast, fungus, whatever happens to be in the grain. We want to take all of those things off the table in terms of variables. Now, our target gravity, and this is the gravity going into the fermenter, is 1.070, okay? So 1070. That's going to put us right in that range of around sort of 8 to 10%. It'll give us a little fluctuation up and down. But here's the thing. The amount of grain that you're going to use and the amount of water that you're going to use is going to be up to you. So whatever's best for your system. If you have no idea where to start with this, and this is like your first all grain mash, I will put a suggested recipe down in the comments below here. It's not in this document, but essentially it's 8 kilos of grain to 25 liters of water, or 17.5 pounds to 6 gallons of water. So that's kind of your base deal. If that still doesn't make any sense to you and you're really keen to get involved in this, please do get involved with it. Drop a question in the comments down below. If anything like this comes up and you just don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know how to do it, but you really want to help and get involved, thank you, that's awesome. Tell me what you're missing out on down in the comments below and I can make a video to help you out. Cool? In addition to those targets that we're specifically trying to hit, we've got a few other data points that we want to try and record during the mash. Now, some of these things, like pH, for example, if you don't have a pH meter, that's cool. If you want to go out and buy one, I'll put a link, for all of this sort of stuff down in the comment section below. But if you don't have one and you can't get one, that's fine. Anytime you get to something like this, if you don't have the means to record the data that it's asking for, just leave it blank. You don't need to make anything up. Don't guess. Don't, I think that's about 5. Don't do that. Just leave it blank. I need to say a huge thank you to the Patreons, guys. I've not been able to get this project off the ground up until now because I've never had time. And now I'm doing this stuff pretty much full time, guys, which is, it's amazing. Mind blowing. And it's thanks to these guys. So thank you so much, Patreons. If you find value in these videos, in projects like this, in the podcasts that I'm putting out, and you'd like to help support as well, you can go to chasethecraft.com/support, and you can see all the different ways that you can help out. One of those obviously is a Patreon. Strike water temp, strike water volume, and sparge water, these are there to calculate the total water used. If you're not using sparge water, that's fine, just put it all in a strike water. And of course the total grain weight that you decided to use, put that in there as well. Mash pH, and then there's a section, there'll be a section for notes. This document gives you everything you need to get started now, but I do not have the actual submission process ready to take your data. Now, there is no way that you are going to be ready to submit in anything less than 2 weeks. You just can't. When that time rolls around, I'll have the submission process ready. Cool? Yeast. We are using US-05. Now, I know some people don't like the idea of this. I get it. Just remember that this whole thing is not about making the best whiskey we can out of these base malts. This process, this test, is about standardizing as much as we can and getting as much out of the way of the base malt as we can, so we can ascertain what the base malt actually does to a finished product. US-05 is considered relatively consistent and relatively clean by most professional brewers and distillers. The big upsides for it though really are that it is super widely available. Anywhere that has anything to do with home brewing is going to have US-05, 9 times out of 10. And it's relatively cheap. Once again, I'll put links down below. Just to let you know, the links down there are affiliate links. That means that it won't charge you anything extra. You won't even notice the difference. But the person you're buying off sponsors Still It. They're going to sponsor the collab for you, which is pretty cool. So if you can, and it doesn't make any difference to you, please guys, use those affiliate links. You'll help support Still It, Chase the Craft, and the collab as a whole, and help ensure that we can do more of these things in the future. So we're going to be pitching this at a rate of 2 of those packets per 23 litres, or 2 of those packets per 6 gallons. And if you can, temperature control to 24 degrees Celsius. If you can't for the fermentation, that's cool, just let it go where it goes. You can use a couple of woolen blankets over it, or a fan, or some wet towels, whatever you can to try and wrangle it towards 24C. If you can't, you can't. Once again, record the data. If you really can't get US-05, or, you know, in your part of the world, it's $70 for a packet, something crazy, I get it. Once again, I'm not excluding you from the experiment because of it, but we need you to record what you use. So the preference from US-05 goes to US-05 to another neutral brewer's yeast. From there, it goes to a baker's yeast, and turbo, daddy, all of that stuff. Nope, we're not using it. Once your wash is at 24 degrees Celsius, I want you to oxygenate the bejesus out of it. Do that the best way that you can. If you don't know what that means and you don't have any of the tools for those jobs, stir the crap out of it until it goes all nice and foamy with a sanitized spoon. We've got to keep our sanitary practice really good for this, guys. So keep everything clean, keep everything sanitized. Star San, use Star San. But yeah, mix it up heaps until it goes nice and frothy, and then you can pitch the yeast from there. So once we've got the environment that we're putting the yeast into, you know, controlled as much as we can, and we have the temperature controlled as best we can, there's really not much else we can do. We're just gonna have to let it ride. But what we can do is take pretty good notes, so when it comes time to submit your process and your product into the survey, you've got good data for that. So have a look on the sheet. I'm not going to go through them all here because there's a bunch of them, but have a look on that sheet. Make sure you know what you need to record so you can do so. Cool? All right, distillation, guys. Distillation. This is a huge one. So this is probably where our equipment, like everyone's collective equipment, varies the most. So we really can't control the equipment. It's just the way it is. What I will say is, if you've had a real flavorful product go through the still recently, something like, you know, a rum would be the obvious one. Do a cleaning run on your still, or at the very least just do a steam clean. Whatever it is that you do to get your still totally back to, you know, like neutral, there's no flavors left in it. Do that ahead of time. It's probably not a horrible idea. There are, in my mind, 3 main groups of stills. So I've got a few little guidelines to try and standardize things for each of those groups, and also to try and sort of pull those groups to be a little bit more similar to each other, pull them together. Now, the first one is pot still. This is actually my preference for this. So if you have a pot still, I would suggest using the pot still. I understand that pot distilling is, you know, less refined than other types of distillation, but what it means is that there is less user input that creates variables further down the track. So if you are running a pot still, guys, aim for double distillation. So that means that you're going to do a stripping run or a series of stripping runs. You're going to collect all of those faints and pop them into the still again for spirit distillation. Feel free to run the stripping runs hard and fast, that's cool. But the spirit run on the pot still, make sure you're running it nice and low and slow. Plated stills, this is my second option here. If you're going to run plates, guys, that's totally cool. Restrict it to 1 or 2 plates, and you know you're still better than me, but I would suggest you probably want to skip the stripping runs, just do, you know, straight spirit run. We're aiming to be collecting product at about 75 to 80% ABV. Now, some people out there, they've only got packed reflux stills. That's cool, you can totally use them. Try and turn it into a pot still. So what I mean by that is my still is a CCVM still. It is a big old column that when it's in CCVM mode, it has a whole lot of packing in it and a reflux condenser at the top of the column. So to turn this into a pot still, I take all the packing out of the column and I get rid of the condenser at the top, and the vapor just goes straight up and out. So once again, if you're not entirely sure how to do that for your still, comments down below. And don't forget, guys, there's going to be a whole lot of details that you need to record during the distillation process or after the distillation process. Once again, I'm not going to go through them all here. I don't think I need to, but check that document and make sure you know what you need to record. Cuts! Oh dear God, this took so much thinking. The problem with cuts is that we're either going to run by the numbers, and if we run by the numbers, we run the risk of cutting out flavor that we should be including from the grain, or letting through flavor, you know, nasty stuff, heads or tails, one or the other, that's going to mask the flavor of the grain, and we're not going to be able to assess it properly. If we do it purely based on the sensory, on sight, touch, smell, taste, then we're relying totally on a subjective process. Now, I see huge problems with either of these, and in the end I decided what we're going to do is we're going to try and thread the needle a little bit. So we're going to do it by sight, smell, taste, but we're not going to be making cuts to make the best whiskey. We're going to be looking simply for heads at the top. We're looking for the acetone, the nail polish remover. As soon as that's gone away, we make the cut and we call it hearts. So we're not making a judgment call based on what you think is going to be delicious in a month's time or 6 months' time, or what you think is going to blend nice in with the rest of the run. We're just making a cut hard and fast when you can no longer detect heads. On the other end of the spectrum, we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to go delving down into the tails looking for flavor. We're not subscribing to, you know, kind of the Scotch school of thought where we'll take some grunge now because it'll age out later and turn into something beautiful. We're going to cut the grunge out. So we're looking for cement, you know, like pavement after rain. I get that often a lot in tails, or wet dog or wet cardboard. So as soon as those start showing up, cut, and it's tails. Please be aware, guys, if you haven't done this before, if you haven't made cuts on all grain whiskey, the grainy flavor comes over very close to the tails, and this is where the delicate part is. And the grainy flavor, in my mind, is often very similar to tails. So yeah, just be aware of those things, guys. We can only do what we can do, and once again, this will be sorted out with the sheer numbers of people that submit. Now, if you want to make your cuts into individual jars and assess them, you know, once you've stopped and you're not under pressure to run the still, you can sit down and take your time. That's totally fine. Please don't blend anything. So don't take a little bit of this jar and a little bit of that jar. The jar is either in or it's out. And once you make the cut from heads and tails, you don't take anything outside of that, and you don't remove anything inside it. So no going down for the sweet water at the end, no deciding that a jar in the middle is not so great and taking it out. We just want one continuous run. And lastly, guys, we're going to need to proof this stuff down for tasting. Once again, everything's going to be coming off the still different for everyone. There will be questions asking you. Check the document to see what I'm asking you. But it's going to be different from person to person. What we can do is control to a certain ABV for tasting. That's going to be 45%. Okay, 45% or 90 proof. Use a calculator to do this and do it accurately, guys. Take your time. I've actually even suggested in the process that you calculate the amount of water you need to add, and then you add just a little bit less than that, to you know, to then to be able to double check again, take another reading, make sure that you're hitting your numbers, and you know, be quite specific about it. Cool. use a water that is not extreme in any way. So if you've got distilled water or a bottled mineral water that has a very low profile in terms of any flavour or mouthfeel that it brings to the table, cool, use that. If not, use filtered water. If you have to use tap water, that's cool, but yeah, just let's hope that your tap water is not horrible. Now, once your product's proofed down, it is not time for tasting. We're gonna let this marry. We're gonna let this settle. I won't say age, we're not using wood because that's a whole nother lot of variables that we're just not even gonna touch. But we want it to chill. We want it to turn into one cohesive unit after we've shocked it with all of that water that we've proofed it down with. So we're gonna let it sit for at least a week, ideally 2. Now, if you get to the end of this process, congratulations guys, you just turned your shed or your kitchen or whatever it happens to be into a laboratory. You're freaking awesome and I thank you for it, and the community is going to thank you for it when these results start piling in. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Now, what's next, you say? From the day that this video goes out, I figure we have about a week average for people to get their hands on ingredients and get themselves, get their ducks in a row. Then we've got maybe another couple of days until a weekend or whenever you've got the time to mash. A week, probably a week and a half from that for fermenting. Another couple of days to get around to being able to distill it, and then a couple of weeks, and then a week or 2 to let it marry as well. So we're at least a month out from anyone being able to do the sensory side of this stuff, guys. So what I will be doing is, if you're watching this video when it first came out and you're downloading that document when it first came out and you're getting on board quickly, you're like early adopters of this program. Thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna be setting the sensory side up like a multi-choice question. So it's not gonna be write what you think you taste, because everyone will say something different and the data will be an absolute nightmare. What I am gonna do is get a small group of people to do that first, to give me an idea of the things that they're starting to pick up in these liquids, so I can write a good multi-choice, questionnaire for people. Now, a few very smart individuals have suggested that we be able to do multiple sensory testings on the same product. So what I mean is, you make a whiskey, a white whiskey, we're doing white whiskey, and then you can taste it a couple of times yourself to see if it, if you get different answers, and you can give it to, perhaps you've got a buddy who is a professional distiller or a blender or something, and you'd like to give it to them to assess it and say what they can taste in it. Damn good idea, I love it. We're gonna build that in as well. So make sure you're saving enough of this stuff to be able to do multiple sensory tests on it. I can't believe this is happening. This is exciting. This is something I've wanted to do for years, and I can't believe it's actually happening. So if you're into it too and you're excited, please, please share this video to people that you think will get involved. Ask them to get involved if you think it's something that they might do. Figure out how to get it done yourselves. Don't discount yourself because you don't have enough experience or you haven't done this sort of thing before. Please, guys, don't do that. Get involved. This project, this whole collab thing, is only as strong as people's commitment to actually get down and do the science. So if you can affect someone else, if you can encourage someone else to do it, please do. Anyway, I know this was heavy on the theory stuff. There wasn't any pretty slow-mo on screen. I'm sorry about that, guys. It'll be coming back soon. But I'm super, super excited about this. I hope you are too. So give the video a thumbs up. Please, guys, do that. Give it a comment. If you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so when updates on this collab go out, you'll get them. If you really want to be up to date on the collab, make sure you have that URL on your favorites somewhere so you can check it every week or 2 to see if there's anything new. And if you want to, you can sign up to the mailing list at the Chase the Craft homepage. I'll be sending emails out whenever there's an update on this stuff. All right, guys, keep chasing the craft. I'll see you next time. See ya.